Now, David, looking back over the 70s of the music of going into the decade of into the 80s, how do you sort of look at music in the 70s?
Sort of like this.
How do you look at music in the 70s?
Like that.
Pardon?
Like that.
Right, now if I ask you both just the one person who's had more influence on music in the 70s, who would it be?
I don't know.
The guitar players, it's got to be Jimi Hendrix, you know, because he's the one that's...
It's from the 60s.
Well,
They
he
emerged
spilled
in
over
the
to the
70s.
70s. Oh, he emerged from the 70s. Well...
Elton John? No. David Bowie?
No.
Bruce Springsteen?
No.
I think David Bowie at the beginning of the 70s definitely shaped things, but the 70s has been rather a dead 10 years, I think, generally. It's sort of... I mean, the 60s was such a fantastic sort of cultural explosion worldwide. The 70s is still getting over that, I think. And I think maybe, you know, the punk thing when it happened was just fantastic because it sort of saved the last few years of the 70s.
I think David Bowie strides the decade like a giant. I don't think there's any band that has not been influenced by him except the reggae bands,
Right.
which haven't influenced anybody, particularly outside Britain, I don't think.
Jerry?
I'd agree with that, actually. Only Bowie's the guy who actually runs through the 70s. Everything else starts around 76, 77.
What would you say was the most influential thing in the 70s on music?
Well, it wasn't Vera Lynn, was it?
It certainly wasn't.
I couldn't possibly say the people.
Yeah.
More than anything else, the people really created changes and wanted change.
Who had the influences in the 70s, like, say, the Beatles had in the 60s and Dylan? Who would you personally name as the people or groups that had the big influences on the 70s
I actually
music?
think Sharon John, without a doubt.
Yeah?
Sharon, yeah.
You mean
they
Elton?
are a huge influence over everybody.
Right.
Don't you agree, chaps? Sharon?
Anyone else?
Mm.
Anyone else?
No, that's about it.
Yeah?
Elton's about it, I think.
What about, say, someone like Bowie?
No, not in Elton's category, I don't think.
I think the people that would go down in the 70s would have to be the Bee Gees. The Beatles will always stay there. I think they'll transcend the next 30 years.
Now, as far as the music going into the 80s, how do you sort of see music going into the 80s? Will it be exciting?
Will it be
go back to
exciting?
rock and roll? What?
Oh, how the hell do I know? I have no idea.
Music in the 80s, I don't know, it'll progress. All the younger groups will get older.
Yeah.
The people who are good, I think most of them will continue to be good and hopefully even get a lot better than they've been, because a lot of people who were in groups are now finding themselves kind of around about my age, you know, sort of mid-20s, and and they're getting into other things now, like sort of Stevie Wonder, who originally was just fingertips and just the harmonica playing kid, is now developing into your slight musical genius.
Rage.